Welcome back to another FPL reaction stream, looking ahead to Blank Gameweek 26 and discussing all the weekend's action for Double Gameweek 25 so far. We've got the game between Man City and Brentford happening now. The lineups have just come out. Nathan Ake and De Bruyne are benched. Alvarez, Oscar, Bob, Haaland, Foden, Walker all start, but those that bought Ake like myself this week, it just hasn't paid off. And if Darwin Nunez misses out tomorrow against Luton Town, my -4 hit has basically turned into a disaster because I sold Solanke and I sold Trent, and even then, selling him to Ake for a hit just hasn't paid off at all. So it's been quite a mixed bag week. I have got a green arrow so far and a lot of returns from the players I've had, but the Double Gameweek players have been very underwhelming so far. Let's see if they can make up for it today and tomorrow. And I've got Foden and Erling Haaland triple captain. That could change my week a little bit and make it a bit more respectable, maybe closer to the 100-point mark. But that seems like asking for a lot, especially with Jota missing out completely. Darwin Nunez as well. He is a big doubt for tomorrow. So let's get straight into your questions. There's also UCL Fantasy and the Champions League tonight, and I'll briefly show you what I'm looking to do because my two captains have failed so far, and going for Vinicius Jr. over Mbappe hasn't paid off once again. But it's actually a quite decent week in UCL Fantasy. The points and stuff haven't been updated. I might even do it on stream, but the main focus, of course, of this is UCL Fantasy. So I'm going to unpin the comments so I can actually get to the first one. If it lets me, that'd be great. Yeah, just give me a second. All right, here we go. Let's go for the first question. Apologies. So Sudindra says, hey Dylan, planning on wildcarding in Game Week 27. So which defender out of 8 Nuri or a Villa defender should I get for a 1 Game Week punt? And who to captain tonight for UCL, Thuram or Matson? Great questions. In regards to your FPL one, I would rather go for 8 Nuri. I think the fixture is more favourable. Sheffield United is an easier game compared to Nottingham Forest. Aston Villa do have a better defence than Wolves, but it's not a big difference for me to really vie for a Villa defender. Alex Moreno would definitely be a nice 1 week punt, and the same goes for Pau Torres, who's kind of a safe option who also helps you cover Blank Gameweek 29. But in your case, you're wildcarding in 27 anyway. I'd rather go for a Nuri, better chance of a clean sheet this week, and he's also got more attacking potential than any Aston Villa defender, with the exception of Alex Moreno or Luca Dean, and that's my big concern now. Will Alex Moreno start to be rotated? And I think he could be, especially once the Europa Conference League starts to take place once again for Aston Villa. So that would be my answer. I'd go for 8 Nuri. As for UCL one, I would go for Thuram. I tend to favour the attackers. Matson should start, by the way. We're going to get the lineups very soon, but yeah, Thuram would be my preference there if Thuram does start. Frick, and I just bought Ake in. Same here. It is what it is. We all knew, the possible risks. I was actually more concerned of Ake being benched against Chelsea and starting against Brentford instead, but it's been the other way around. Yeah, no Ake indeed. Who will you change the captain to in UCL Fantasy? I've only got one option this week, or for today, and that is Matson. I've also got Sommer, but I'm not going to sub him on because Lunin got me 9 points. Those late changes actually saved my week in UCL Fantasy because I bought Lunin, who got that 9-pointer, and Kevin De Bruyne, who was man of the match against Copenhagen. Zenzone says, evening Dylan, Jota for Hwang or Douglas Luiz will have 11 players in Game Week 26. Oof, I'd rather go for Hwang this week. There's no doubt about it. If you're also looking to navigate Blank Gameweek 29 without using the free hit, Douglas Luiz does help you in that case because he's got a confirmed fixture there against West Ham away. Whilst with Hwang, I'm not going to say it's impossible. There is a chance, but the likelihood is Wolves will blank in Gameweek 29. But to be honest, if you're asking me right now, I would actually lean towards going for Hwang Hee-chan. I'll cover this in the team selection video because both of those players you mentioned could well be my replacements for Diogo Jota. And earlier today, I did do a transfer tips video and I cover both players. I did Douglas Luiz last week, but I do mention him in today's video. And of course, other options like Leon Bailey. De Bruyne can still do damage with 30 minutes to play. True. You're not going to get that from Nathan Ake, though, I think. But De Bruyne, definitely. There's still a bit of hope. But, of course, it is very frustrating. Good to see you. Everton is finished. Wait, is this the same person? Because it was Man United a few weeks ago. Then it was Chelsea. And now it's Everton. Fair enough. Hopefully Arsenal aren't going to be there anytime soon. ZX Trenick says, yep, good evening. If you are wildcarding, should you try avoiding free hit in Game Week 29? Ideally, because a wildcard is also used to optimize blanks and doubles, and I think one key benefit of using it right now or in Game Week 27 is to avoid taking hits or using the free hit in Game Week 29. So that would be the plan. But to be honest, there are some plans that do involve wildcarding now or next week and then using the free hit in 29. And you can also navigate Game Week 30 and beyond. So it's all team dependent on what your plans long term are. But if you're asking me, I'd ideally say, yeah, I'd rather use the free hit later in the season. Damn you, De Bruyne, wasted my hit on you. Hope that Reguilon gets an assist or something. Yeah, and, you know, for him to concede 4 against Liverpool and get 3 points is something, you know. He got that assist, but yeah, I think with De Bruyne, it is frustrating, but he can get something off the bench. I think with those, with Ake and, you know, all these other options that are benched, the defenders, you know, that's where you have no hope. Is there any news on Darwin's injury? No. So Jurgen Klopp was asked about this today. He didn't mention Darwin Nunez at all. He talked about Jota being out for at least a month. Alisson's still out, and you've also got a few doubts. I think Szoboszlai and Trent are out for the final, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Szoboszlai could make it, but yeah, with Darwin Nunez, there was literally no update, which is quite encouraging in a way. You would expect Darwin Nunez to be in the squad tomorrow. Hopefully he starts and can get a brace at least, but that's asking for a lot, isn't it? Would you sell KDB now? Not in Game Week 26. I think he will start now in the game against Bournemouth, but after that, he's a sell. I talked about this in recent Transtips videos and whenever I cover FPL. Yeah, De Bruyne for me is a hold for 26 and a sell potentially in 27 or Game Week 28. How much rank do you gain from a Haaland triple captain? That's a good question, actually. I'd have to check live FPL.net, but it's mainly a thing for the mini league. My closest rival doesn't have Haaland at all, so Haaland doing well would help me in that regard. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, to be honest. I'll check that. I might even bring up live FPL now and we can analyze that together. So what we're doing with Diogo Jota, he's a definite sell now. If it wasn't for the injury, of course, I would have actually talked about the possibility of keeping him for Game Week 27 against Nottingham Forest. He's got a great record against them, but now, yeah, he's just a very easy sell, and I'd rather sell him than Darwin Nunez, to be honest. Yeah, thank you, Ahmed, for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Hey, mate, just joined. I think I'm set and activated my wildcard. Hope to see a wildcard video this week. Yeah, there definitely will be. Who do you think is essential at this time? Great question, and once again, thank you very much for sending that in. I would say Solanke, Ivan Toney would be 2 of the prime candidates up front, and Ollie Watkins. Those 3 are really good, but the way I'd go about it on a wild card is go for Haaland, Toney, and Watkins, and then in Game Week 28, I would sell Haaland to Solanke, and that's the way I'd go about it. In Game Week 29, you can still field in 11, and you can bench the likes of Solanke there, and ultimately bring Haaland back from Game Week 30 onwards. The key, I think, challenge for those wildcarding now is how do you navigate after the blank Game Week in 29, from Game Week 30 onwards. That's the biggest challenge. If you can find a way to do that, I think you're well set for the rest of the season. But yeah, I'd say Toney is definitely right up there. I might even bring him in this week. I'd also consider a few other options. Of course, Aston Villa would be very tempting to cover Game Week 26 and 29 without using the free hit, but I wouldn't go too overboard. For example, Douglas Luiz over Hwang Hee-chan might be good long term, but you can't ignore the points right in front of you. So in terms of names off the top of my head, because I haven't built the best wildcard team yet, you'll find that out in the wildcard team video, I would probably go for the likes of Neto in goal for Bournemouth. I wouldn't say he's essential, by the way. These are just some ideas. I'll give you the essential ones very soon. So Neto in goal for Bournemouth. Also, Kaminsky's a decent shout, but I'd mainly be looking at Areola just as a cheap enabler on your bench, and you can sometimes start him, like in Game Week 29. I also think Jarrod Bowen will come good again, and he could be a decent option for you, but I think essential is a weird one. Reguilon would be a nice shout, and he covers the blanks, and he's got attacking potential. But I think Toney is probably one of the only ones, and Watkins, that I'd class as essential on the wildcard. In the midfield, I'd still go for Saka. I know he's likely to blank in 29, but you can't ignore the next 3 games there for Arsenal. And you can always sell him in 29 and then bring him back around Game Week 31. So, yeah, I still think Saka is almost essential at the moment. And also Heung-min Son, you can bench him this week, but from Game Week 27 to 30, I would argue that Son is the best option in the game, not just in the midfield. So I'd also put Heung-min Son in that category, but he does blank this week, of course. Zaba says, wildcard 26 draft, please. Free at 29, so we have team for a longer period. I'll cover this in a video that's coming up very soon. So the best wildcard team. I'll plan to upload that either tomorrow or on Thursday. There's also going to be the team selection video. And if people want to see it, I'm open to doing a chip strategy guide because I haven't done it in quite a while. I haven't done one this season. I've done it for UCL Fantasy, so I'm open-minded there. When free in FPL, do your bench points count? No. I think I responded to your comment earlier. Only the bench boost, which is another chip, of course, that is the only chip where if you activate it, your bench boost, your bench points will count. The free hit is only your starting 11, and then your squad reverts back to how it was beforehand in the following week. So it's literally just a 1-week punt with all your picks, but those on your bench will not score points for you. Hi Dylan, tell me Haaland will score 3 today. Yeah, a lot of us have. I think 1.3 million have triple captained him this week. I think he's going to score a brace. That's my prediction. Brentford's the only team in the Premier League he hasn't scored against, and I think he'll make things right. He's going to score at least one, but my prediction is he's going to score two. A hat-trick obviously would be dreamland for us, but yeah, I'm going with two. Hi, mate. Jota to who? Hwang, Neto, Adingra, or anyone else? My preference right now is Hwang. He's on penalties potentially, playing down the middle in Cunha's absence, and he's got some decent underlying numbers. And also in terms of goal threat from Wolves, he's by far the best. So yeah, Hwang would be my choice. Then it'd be Neto, and then I'd go for Adingra. But I have to say, Adingra was very impressive the other day. United defender for next week, Dallow's my favourite. I'm going to stick with him. Maguire's a cheap option, but he was subbed off quite early against Luton Town. I think Dallow is the best option if you can afford it. Tomiyasu playing tomorrow? No. I don't think he's in the squad. From the reports I've seen, Thomas Partey's in full training, but he hasn't travelled with Arsenal. Fabio Vieira is back. He should be on the bench. But yeah, Tomiyasu, Timber, Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, I still think they're all out, to be honest. And it's unfortunate, but Tomiyasu is not going to play tomorrow. Hosea says only one left for my starting 11 next game week. Start Trippier versus Arsenal. Estupinian versus Everton. The thing with Trippier is he can always get an assist, and if he does so, he can get some bonus points along the way. But Newcastle, defensively, have been one of the worst in the league in the last couple of months. Since December, they're probably in the bottom 5. So, tricky one. I think Estupinian will start against Everton, who haven't been great recently. And if he does start, I think Estupinian is my preference. But that's the biggest question. Is he going to start? And if you're not backing him to, I just go for Trippier and stick with a safe option. But for me personally, I think the Ecuadorian will start, and I'm going to go for Estupinian there. Good to see you, Bada. I'm good. What about you? Thank you very much for asking. Thinking of getting rid of Estupinian for a Wolves defender. If you can do it for free, yeah, 100%, no questions about it. Not going to lie, though, if you already have 3 defenders, excluding Estupinian, that you can start this week, I'd rather make transfers in the midfield or forward line. The defence is just, I don't know, it's very hard to nail on this season. You could argue Arsenal defenders look great, but they're likely to blank in 29. And look, overall, good transfer, like I said earlier. I'm 100% on it if you can do it for free. But I'd rather go for a Wolves attacker in this case, or maybe just focus on the forward line. Go for Ivan Toney, for example. He's a very underrated option this week, as I highlighted in the Trans Tips video earlier today. My UCL fantasy captain is Trossard. Facts, I'm just wondering, do you have a player that features today, though? So a Maatsen, a Kalinoglu, a Thuram. If you do, captain that player first, and then if they blank or don't do that well, you can then captain Trossard tomorrow. That's just something to bear in mind. How important is Salah in Gameweek 27? De Bruyne out, can play the Jota transfer accordingly. I'm not going to lie, Salah in Gameweek 27 is so difficult for those that don't own him. I still think he's worth avoiding until Gameweek 30, which sounds crazy, but after Nottingham Forest, it's Man City in Gameweek 28. Then he blanks, most likely, in Gameweek 29. So I think the best time to buy him is Gameweek 30. I'm not going to lie, though, Gameweek 27 would be very tempting. For those with De Bruyne, you can get to Salah very easily. Fine, that's absolutely good. But also think about Gameweek 29. How can you navigate that? And are you happy to have Salah against Man City? And to be honest, he has done it against them in the past. But it's worth noting. And for me personally, I'm probably going without him until Gameweek 30. Good to see you, Alex, as always. Thank you very much for tuning in. EY says, should I wildcard or free hit this week? So my team is Dubravka, Areola, Zinchenko, Stupinian, Burn, Ake, Virgil, Jota, Foden, Richarlison, Gordon, Palmer, Darwin, Haaland, Watkins. It's a solid team, but breaking it down and those that are blanking for you. So Zinchenko is still unavailable right now. He could miss out against Newcastle. Stupinian is a big rotation risk. Burns away to Arsenal. Ake, I think, will start against Bournemouth now. Van Dijk, obviously blanking. Interesting. Looking at Gameweek 27 and beyond, I think a wildcard's probably best in this situation. I think I'd wildcard. Milner says already did transfers this week. Jota and Van Dijk to Hwang and Powell. Looks good. Also helps you for Gameweek 29. And remember, with Hwang and Wolves assets, they still can feature in Blank Gameweek 29, but it requires 2 results in the FA Cup. So Bournemouth need to lose to Leicester and Wolves need to lose to Brighton, which is possible, but you need 2 results to go your way, and it's unlikely because of that. But yeah, you can't look too much into Blank Gameweek 29. That will be one key advice I'm going to try giving this stream, and I really like Hwang this week. He might well be my transfer in. Any plans for next week? I'll cover this in the team selection video, but Either Hwang or Douglas Luiz are very likely to come in for the midfield, and Ivan Toney up front for Darwin Nunez. One of the key reasons why I sold Solanke last week was to look at Darwin's 2 fixtures in Game Week 25, which looked really encouraging, and it's a shame he was subbed off at half-time, but also because it allowed me to go aggressive with the forward transfers and go for Ivan Toney against West Ham, where he's got a great record against them, 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 games, and also Brentford are a bit of a bogey team for West Ham, who are struggling this year with 0 wins in this calendar year. Punjabi says, hey Dylan, how do you decide on 2 forwards out of Watkins, Solanke and Toney until Blank Gameweek 29? I think the way to go, this is obviously the ideal way to go, Watkins and Toney now, buy Solanke for Haaland in Game Week 28. That is the way to navigate it, optimally. But if you can't do that, I'm probably going to go for Watkins, Solanke, and then you bring Toney for Game Week 29 for Solanke. So let me know if you can go for the aggressive switch and do Haaland to Solanke in 28. If you are able to do that or you're happy to do that, then I think that's the way to go. No worries, Courage. It's pretty good, It went by so quickly, which is typical, but it's a sign of having fun. Ahmed, thank you very much. Fantastic analysis. Confirm my thoughts. Being top 20k, I'm a good team value. Wildcard will help with all the injuries. Much appreciated as always. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, mate. And I'm glad to hear it. And you're in a great position right now. So hopefully you can push on into the top 10k. But even where you are right now, it's an amazing rank to be. It's so competitive this season. It's getting more difficult every single season. So I wish you the best for the rest of the campaign. Be sure to let me know how you get on. Ionut says, take a -4 for Solanke for Darwin in Game Week 26 or just play 10 men. I think I just play 10 men. I think Solanke will blank against Man City. If it was Toney, though, I'd be very tempted because I back him to do well against West Ham. But you could also level it and say, well, Toney plays Chelsea and Arsenal straight afterwards, whilst Solanke plays Burnley away and then doubles. So Solanke's still a good long-term transfer, at least for the next 3 game weeks. He's quite likely to blank in 29, though. But in my opinion, I think it's best to just play 10 men and buy Solanke for Game Week 27 or 28. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. KDB can still do something off the bench, but it is very frustrating. And yeah, obviously in my case, I got Ake. I don't expect anything from him whatsoever. But yeah, as a triple captain, I do feel for you. The triple captain, though, is the weakest chip, I'd argue. It's between that and the bench boost. The free and the wild card are the ones you really want to nail down, especially the wild cards. So I don't think your season's over. It might look drastically bad right now. My triple captaincy record is actually quite poor. There was that Game Week 26 fixtures, a few years ago, where Salah had 2 plum fixtures, but I wildcarded, and that was the wrong decision in the end, you could argue. Salah ended up going ballistic, and I did lose a lot of points over those compared to those that triple captain him. And I ended up triple captaining Salah a few weeks later. He scored a penalty against Brighton and then was subbed off and missed the second game against Arsenal. He might have come off the bench and he got a 1-pointer. So yeah, my triple captaincy record isn't great. It's still possible to do well though, and I do wish you the best for the rest of the season. Hits for saving, free hit in Game Week 29. Yes, I wouldn't go overboard, but if you can take a -8 or a -12 from now until Game Week 29, I think that's fine. But if you go into -20s and above, I think that's way too much. Who's the better captaincy option, Bakayoko or Kalinoglu? I'd rather go for Kalinoglu. And we might as well, since there are going to be some UCL fantasy questions coming in, we will go through that very soon, I think. I've got to lock in my team as well. But first, let's go into the FPL League, and a big shout out to those in the top 12, as you can see. Be sure to join. There is a league code on the left-hand side and in the description below. Actually, Lulian was talking to us, a few days ago in the previous streams, and yeah, we actually, try to give some analysis and ways to improve his team. He was ranked 41st before Double Gameweek 25, so all the best of those in the Dylan RCM League. There's also the fixtures, of course, as you can see here for Game Week 26. 4 teams are blanking: Luton Town, Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. And if we look a bit longer term to the FDR, Bournemouth are now top up until Game Week 31, but the blanks in Game Week 29 aren't factored in, and once that happens, things will change quite drastically in this ranking. Arsenal are second, Aston Villa, West Ham and Burnley are in the top 5. Chelsea, Sheffield United, Everton, Liverpool and Man City make up the bottom 5 teams in the fixture difficulty rating until Game Week 31, which is quite interesting. In terms of predicted points, Haaland is top with 7.6, Saka is second, then we've got Watkins, Toney, who I'm really backing this week, and Matty Cash, really? It's 5.4 predicted points. Does he even have 5 points since Game Week 15? I don't think so. De Bruyne, Garnacho, Bowen, Hwang Hee-chan and Bruno also make up the top 10. pretty good list overall, but I have to say I completely disagree with the cash one. The fixture looks great, but he's a pretty awful asset in my opinion. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong, and those cash owners will be celebrating. Then we've got the projected price changes tonight. Dallo could be going up in price, but that's about it. Most of the price changes will happen later in the week, particularly, of course, during the deadline stream. Be sure to tune in, by the way, on Saturday. It's a bit of a later deadline, but I will finally be streaming at a so-called normal time there, as I am back from my holidays. Then we go to Draft Town. They're suggesting a -4 hit, Darwin to Højlund and Jota to Odegaard, but at the moment, I'm looking at getting in a Wolves midfielder or maybe Douglas Luiz and Ivan Toney instead of Højlund. If we then go to the stats and look at how many people captained Erling Haaland in the top 10k, 95%. It's absolutely unbelievable. Jota, the second most captain, that's very unlucky, to be honest. Darwin, De Bruyne, Salah in the top 5. So it's not looking great for those, unless you captain Salah and maybe if Haaland goes off tonight. But that is a big if, of course. Foden, Diaz, Saka, Alvarez in the top 10. So as you can see, it's pretty much just Haaland or nothing. So if he does blank, it's not the end of the world, I think. The only thing I will say, though, is that, of course, if you do have a mini-league rival like I do who doesn't have Haaland, him getting a goal or two would definitely be quite helpful. Then we go to FPL.team. I'm going to quickly show you this because I'll probably talk about this in the team selection video and future videos. But this is how my team looks like without making any transfers. I do have a full 11, but it does include Lascelles, who is useless. Estupinian is a big rotation risk. Ake is benched today. There's no guarantee he plays against Bournemouth either. And of course, actually, I say I have a full 11. Darwin Nunez is there. So I've got 10 players, 9 if you exclude Lascelles, 2. But with a -4 here, I can get to 11 and also help navigate Blank Gameweek 29. Then let's look at a few polls that I put out, which could help you. Be sure to check out my community tab on YouTube. So I asked, would you take a -4 hit to buy one of these midfielders to field 11 players in Blank Gameweek 26? And 41% of you have gone for Hwang. In second is, actually, don't take a hit. That option is in second place. In third is Douglas Luiz with 20%, and Gross is last with 17%. I sold Gross, by the way, a couple of weeks ago, and he's got 29 points in free game week. So yeah, I found a new nemesis on FPL, and Gross is definitely a troll for me personally, but maybe I was a bit too impatient with him. The other poll I put out is your favourite Wolves midfielder. I think Sarabia is an underrated pick, but I'd much rather go for Neto, and Hwang Hee-chan for me is my favourite, and most of you do concur. He has almost 60% of the vote, so be sure to go there, like the post, and also be sure to vote, most importantly. And yeah, for those of you that aren't aware, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to get some points from Ake. Well, not necessarily, because he is benched. This is the starting 11 for Man City. Ederson, Walker, Stones, Diaz, Akanji, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, Foden, Alvarez, Oscar Bob, and Erling Haaland. So De Bruyne and Ake are on the bench, and I don't know why I went there with a Man City defender, but it is what it is. I'm hoping he starts in Game Week 26, and then I can just quickly offload him as soon as he plays Man United and Liverpool, then likely to blank in 29. Then I think in Game Week 30, it is Arsenal. As for the Brentford lineup, not really too many surprises. Of course, Pinnock, those that went for him, very unlucky. He got injured before the Liverpool game. Flecken, Ruslev, Aja, Zanka, me, Region, Norgard, Onyeka, Janelt, Wissa, and Tony. That is the starting 11 for Brentford. And really, the only ones that are of interest are Region and Tony at the moment. And Tony could well be my transfer in for Game Week 26. But let's see if he goes through this game unscathed. If he does, I think I'm going to make the move possibly tonight. If not, I'll hold off a little bit longer because there are Champions League games happening this week. Arsenal play tomorrow. You want to avoid injuries and make sure you keep on top of things. But of course, we've got so many injuries in Double Gameweek 25 anyway. And let's quickly show you Champions League. We might as well. Let's see how we can do this. I'm going to go for the full screen. So let's go to my team. For those of you that are interested, in UCL Fantasy, I brought in Maatsen for Vinicius Jr. and I'm captain him. So just need to check if he has started, but I'm fairly sure Maatsen is in the starting 11. And if he is, he's going to be my captain today. And if he blanks, Saka will be my final captain tomorrow. But it hasn't gone well, the captaincy. I captained Haaland on the first day, then Harry Kane. And if I got Mbappe over Vinicius Jr., that would have been a massive swing because I would have captained him on the Wednesday on Valentine's Day last week. But I didn't. It is what it is. At least I made late changes and brought in De Bruyne and Lunin. That did save me there. And things are looking much more positive as a result, yeah, Maatsen is in the starting 11. He will be my captain, and that's pretty much how it goes. In terms of the predictor, I've gone for 1-1 between PSV and Borussia Dortmund, and I've put player of the match. Is it Fulkrug? Yeah, I'm probably going to change that. I don't even know who's going to be player of the match. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. If any of you do play UCL Fantasy, I'd highly recommend it. And also the predictor, which is quite fun, although I'm not really good at it, especially in the last season or so. But yeah, looking at this, interesting. Player of the match, I might just go for a Bakayoko, as someone mentioned earlier, and go for something a little bit rogue, but I'm honestly not feeling it with these players. This is such a difficult game to predict, and all of the games this week, in fact, are in the Champions League, so who even knows at this point? I think I'm going to go for Bakayoko. Watch Fulkrug now do really well. 1-0 Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid. I'm just going to quickly check the lineups and see how things are looking. But yeah, no surprises there. Calhanoglu starting, Martinez and Thuram. Someone did ask me about captaining Thuram earlier. So yeah, overall, not really too many surprises. Morata, is he on the bench? There were rumours. Yes, he is on the bench. So that is an update I saw a few days ago. By the way, one player I had in UCL Fantasy, Lucas Hernandez, he was benched, got a 1-pointer in UCL Fantasy, but at the weekend he scored, and PSG did quite well there. So yeah, owning Hernandez and buying him was also a mistake, but we all make them in these fantasy formats. I think the player of the match I put here was Calhanoglu. So 1-0 into Milan. I might stick with that, but Atletico Madrid do score a lot of goals. Don't be fooled by the Simeone kind of perceptions we have. Atletico Madrid have been very offensive in recent seasons, but I'll save that for later on. I've still gone till 8 p.m. to lock in my predictions, and I think the captaincy pretty much speaks for itself. Maatsen is my only option, and then tomorrow I'll bring on Saliba and Saka, and that's about it. So a few mistakes, but at least those late changes of De Bruyne and Lunin did save a little bit in matchday 7. Let's now go back to my FPL team. And I'm fairly sure if I refresh the page now, Diogo Jota will be red flagged, and yes, he is. So Jota is out, unfortunately. He could be out for several months, so hopefully he does get well soon. It's a shame. I think it's a very good option, to say the least. Junior says, I'm planning on having 8 players for Game Week 29 with predictions. What do you think? It's not just about quantity, it's about quality. So if you cover most of the best options there, I think you're absolutely fine. And I might even go for a similar strategy. Go for Hwang this week, attack the fixtures right in front of me, and then kind of settle with 8 or 9 players in Game Week 29. Big bold head at it again. To be honest though, I think a lot of us would have said, you know, it's not that surprising for De Bruyne to be benched. And if he started both games in 25, he probably would have been benched in 26, to be honest. But obviously it's very frustrating, and I do feel for you. But it is what it is. You can't really do much. It is Pep after all. Sahil says 56 points so far. No Haaland. Only Foden, Solanke will come on, and Jota captain because I missed the deadline. Yeah, Haaland could punish you tonight, but if he does blank, you are possibly looking at a green arrow there. Jazabi says, who would you get rid of for Douglas Luiz though? Jota? Definitely. He's going to miss Game Week 26, 27, and he could even be out until, we're talking about Game Week 32 potentially or beyond. So yeah, I think Jota is the one to sell pretty much. I got Diaz, hope he does well. Do you think Man United assets are to be considered now? Well, definitely. They're in good form. In terms of in-form Premier League teams, they're pretty much second or third behind the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal. And, well, you can still say City because they've been on a tremendous run. They're unbeaten in such a long while. But I think with United assets, Garnacho as a cheap enabler is fine, but Højlund is by far the best. And I think the only two I'd consider buying are Dalot and Højlund. I didn't have Darwin, Jota, or triple captain Haaland this week, was dreading another red arrow, but currently on a green. Yeah, I think the only way that kind of goes backwards is if Haaland goes crazy tonight. So a bit awkward for you as a City fan. What is the last movie you saw? Great question. Godfather Part 2. I rewatched it because it's been such a long while since I watched it originally, and I don't think I was even able to watch the whole film in the first place a few years ago. But yeah, I finally got around to it again. Great movie, of course, one of the best of all time. Good defenders for the upcoming weeks. Reguilon, Pau Torres. You could argue Alex Moreno, but I think with Dean back, that is a major cause for concern, and I think rotation will happen between those two. So I think for the next couple of weeks, Gabriel and Saliba are still right up there for me. So I'd recommend those two. Reguilon, Dalot, and the other option would be Pau Torres. Okay, not starting either, damn. Yeah, it is what it is. I kind of blame myself for going there. I was actually overthinking until the deadline. I wasn't really that convinced about Ake in the first place. I talked about skipping him in last week's video. I should have followed my own advice. All attack chip. is better than triple captainship. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Should I get Højlund for Isak? Yes, look, I'm not going to lie, Højlund is a good option, and apart from Tony, Solanke, Haaland and Watkins, I think Højlund is the next best forward, but just remember United are quite unlikely to feature in Blank Gameweek 29, and after this plum fixture against Fulham, it's Man City away, so Højlund's a good option, he's a good transfer in, he's in form, but I'd rather go for Tony, to be honest. Captaining Saka and UCL Fantasy, yeah, good luck with you, and just like I said to someone else earlier, by the way, just bear in mind, if you have a player who plays today, so maybe from Borussia Dortmund, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid or PSV, captain that player first, and if he blanks, you can then change it to Saka. No, he's not injured, he's on the bench. It's just, no one's nailed on for Man City in the defence, I think Ake started 9 Premier League games in a row, and it was about time that he got benched, really. And I thought, look, if he started today, I would have actually feared for Blank Gameweek 26 against Bournemouth, and Ake could have been benched there. It's just really unlikely to find a Man City defender who starts all 3 of those games. Was thinking Hwang Hee-chan and Watkins, says Shank. Same with De Bruyne. I have 2 free transfers. Yeah, look, Watkins for me, he's just a must-have, and he covers the blanks very well. There are no doubles, but he's even a captaincy contender this week. Hwang Hee-chan, really good option in the midfield. Quite unlikely to feature in Blank Gameweek 29, but the next 3 fixtures look really good. For Gameweek 26, my team is Areola, Walker, Botman, Maguire, Robinson, Saka, KDB, Gordon, Haaland, Tony, Højlund, 1 free transfer. Should I do Salah for KDB? Salah for KDB? No. I wouldn't do that. Just keep KDB for Gameweek 26, and you can always buy Salah in 27. Now, if you are like, 0.1 million, kind of off from being priced out, I can understand your concerns, but even then, you don't sell KDB now. He got benched today. He's probably going to start in Gameweek 26, and yeah, I just don't think it's the time to sell him for Salah, who blanks. And if you do want to buy Salah as soon as possible, do it in Gameweek 27 instead. Chad says I triple captain Salah. So far, you're winning. There are reports that he could miss out tomorrow. He's suffering from cramps, and it's kind of a follow-up from the injury he had before, and he got rushed back too soon. Let's see if there's any truth to that. But yeah, it's looking really good so far. Raya or Martinez? Arsenal will keep more clean sheets, but I'll definitely go for Martinez. The reason why is because Raya won't feature in Gameweek 28 against Brentford, his parent club. He's still on loan from them. And in Gameweek 29, Arsenal are likely to blank, whilst Martinez has a confirmed fixture. And then you're looking at this week in Blank Gameweek 26, Nottingham Forest at home for Martinez compared to Newcastle at home for Raya. I'd rather go for Martinez. Ake not starting, most likely just rotation. Exactly that. I think he's going to start in Gameweek 26 now, so it could be a blessing in disguise in the end, but ultimately, I shouldn't have bought him. This double has been terrible for me, probably my lowest point in the season. To be honest, it's been terrible for a lot of people, even though I'm doing okay this week. Just seeing so many injuries. You're looking at Adebayo in the warm-up, Jota and Darwin Nunez being subbed off at half-time pretty much, and there's many more examples. Pinnock, now you've got the rotation, Nathan Ake and De Bruyne being benched. It's just been an absolute crazy week so far, and there's still a bit to go. We've got tonight between Man City and Brentford and tomorrow, so let's see if there's anything more in store. And another differential, or maybe not differential, but another explosive asset that I had who was primed to do very well this week was Trent, and he got injured, so it has been a bit of a disaster. Mohammed says, I have Joao Pedro, Tsimikas, Jota, Isak, and only 1 free transfer. I'll be using the wild card after this Blank Game Week. Which player do I remove, and do I get a -4 for some hopes of better points? Okay, I can see what you mean there. It really depends on what you want to prioritize, and for me personally, I'd rather go for the forwards and midfielders. So I would personally go for either Tony or Højlund up front. And look, I'm guessing you have Watkins already. If you don't, I would rather go for him instead. So Isak to either Watkins, Tony or Højlund. I would also do Jota to Hwang, and I'd do that for a -4 hit. Shank says, my plan was this with the 2 free transfers, Watkins for Darwin, and then Hwang Hee-chan for Jota, then wait 2 weeks and Solanke for Tony, and Saka for Foden or De Bruyne. I like all of those moves except for Solanke for Tony, because in Gameweek 29, Tony features against Burnley, and you're probably going to, do Solanke in for Tony in 28 and then buy Tony back in 29. And to be fair, I'm doing something quite similar myself with the forwards, and I shouldn't have done it in the first place. But yeah, I think what you want to do there is maybe sell Haaland instead of Tony in 28 for Solanke. When Man City face Liverpool away, then Man City are very likely to blank in 29. So I think that is the optimal play. The rest looks really good. You've got a solid plan, but I just reconsider Tony for Solanke in 28. So yeah, let me know what you think of that, Shank. Tiggy Taylor says Adebayo and Jota injured. KDB triple captain and benched. Come on, Tony and Foden, I need you. I didn't have Haaland. Yeah, I wish you the best, Tiggy. That's really bad luck, to say the least. The Adebayo one, look, an injury in the warm-up, how often does that happen? Yeah, you know, sometimes double game weeks can be full of this variance, and I do feel for you because it's ultimately bad luck. Maro says Bodro, Bradley, Estupinian, Walker, maybe rested in 26, and Taylor, Richarlison, Jota, and Adebayo, free hit territory. Intended to have 2 free transfers this week, but with Trent out, had to bring in Bradley. Yeah, I can understand what you mean. I personally think Estupinian will start. Walker's a difficult one, and you might be right. He could be rested in 26. I think I would potentially free hit. And you could even consider the wild card potentially if you can also navigate Blank Gameweek 29 and 30 and beyond. But yeah, I think free hit Maro could be the way to go for you. Best replacement for Jota, Darwin, and Pedro Porro. I would arguably keep Porro if you've got 3 other defenders that you can start and have a full 11. I'd rather sell Jota and Darwin. And for me, I think for Jota, you're looking at Hwang. I'm guessing you have Saka already, so I'm not going to go for him. The obvious pick in the midfield. So Hwang is a really good option to consider. There's also Neto, Douglas Luiz, and Bailey. As for Darwin, my favourite replacement this week is Ivan Toney. Will Zinchenko, Trent, and Archer play? Well, Trent is blanking in 26 anyway, and he's probably going to be out for the Carabao Cup final. He's probably a doubt for Game Week 27 as well. As for Zinchenko, he is still out of the squad against Porto for tomorrow's game, and he's probably a major doubt for the weekend too. So with Archer, I'm not so sure, but with Zinchenko and Trent, they're definitely out for Game Week 26. Bubatak says, hi Dylan, 1 free transfer. Would you do Virgil, Borro to Jota, or Jota Darwin to Nuri, or another defender, Hwang Hee-chan and Højlund for a -8 to attack this week? Plan to wildcard in 27. The thing with hits as well is, if it doesn't pay off in a single week, it can pay off in the future. So you take a hit, and let's say, for example, Tony, he features in Game Week 29. He's got a great fixture there. He also doesn't blank at all in the near future. So that's the sort of move I'd want to go for. With Højlund, he's likely to blank in 29. And of course, he faces Man City in Game Week 27. You're saying you're going to go wildcard anyway. That's fair enough. But you need all of these players to deliver this week. And there's no guarantee of that happening. I did something similar by buying Ake and Darwin in 25. And it hasn't paid off at all. So I'd just be a bit careful about taking a -8 or more in a blank game week, where I think the ceiling is going to be very low, and taking these hits could just lead to a red arrow, in my opinion. I'd just be a bit careful to strike that balance. I'd maybe go to a -4, but I'm not entirely sure about taking a -8 hit for all of those moves. Jazabi says, I think Brentford could be trouble for City tonight. They didn't play well against us on Saturday. Hoping Haaland blanks because I went Jota triple captain over him. 2-1 Brentford, I reckon. I'm not going to lie, I disagree. The way Brentford defended against Liverpool, of course, it's a different game. But if they do that against Man City, they're going to get absolutely thrashed tonight. And with City dropping points against Chelsea, I think they're going to respond. And yes, there are some surprises in the lineup with De Bruyne and Ake missing out, but the team is still strong enough. I think Oscar Bob could be a really nice, well, differential one. Maybe not differential. I'm not going to consider him an FPL, but I think he could do really well tonight. And ultimately, if Brentford win 2-1, I'd be happy from a non-FPL perspective, but I personally think City are going to win by 2 or 3. I got Diaz. Yeah, like I mentioned, Badr, I think you got the answer earlier. The 2 players I consider from Man United are Dalot and Højlund, but I think 1's enough. I wouldn't go for 2. Rune says Alvarez and Walker playing now, so good for me, but would you transfer them out for Game Week 26 predicting benchings? The thing with Alvarez, though, he started every single Premier League game so far. I'd be more concerned about Walker. Defenders for Man City and Pep Guardiola are always a major concern. I think with Alvarez, I still think you could get the nod, but I understand your reservations. You could do Alvarez to Tony or Højlund, but I'd rather just go for Tony and help cover Blank Gameweek 29 as well. And I also have far more confidence in Tony than I do in Højlund. As a City fan, I was so tempted to triple captain Haaland. I'm hoping we win, but Haaland doesn't score. Yeah, and look, the amount of chances he missed the other day, I think it's a record for the highest XG Haaland's ever accrued in a single match and failed to score. And he had 9 shots, I think, overall. Absolutely crazy. I personally think he's going to score tonight. He's never scored against Brentford before. The only Premier League club he has failed to score against. And I think that changes today. Mara says other players, KDB, Neto, Douglas Luiz, Haaland, and Watkins. Yeah, good players. And I would keep KDB this week, but I'd probably sell him in 27 or 28. And to be honest, with that Man United game in 27, you wouldn't expect him to be benched there. And I think Liverpool away, the difficulty of the fixture, it's an awkward situation for De Bruyne owners, and you might even be tempted to do De Bruyne to Salah in 27. But ultimately, my advice will be to keep De Bruyne in Blank Gameweek 26. If there's one thing you could change about FPL, what would it be? I think just new chips would definitely be something to refresh the game. But if I had to pick one thing, it's probably some points to reward defenders and maybe more defensive-minded players. Like in Sky Fantasy Football, you get points for passing tiers and tackle tiers. In UCL Fantasy, you get ball recovery points. I think something like that would really help FPL and, well, not just have more points in general, but it also makes you think. For example, Van Dijk versus Trent, you have more attacking potential in Trent, but with Van Dijk, you get more ball recovery. So it makes it a difficult decision and not just black or white, and you go for the defender with more attacking potential. Any update on Alisson return? I'm thinking of going Dubravka to Kelleher. I can understand that. I think Alisson is still a doubt for the final, but there is no guarantee he's going to be unavailable for Game Week 27, so I'm not so sure about that. And with Kelleher, yeah, he might do well against Nottingham Forest, but then it's Man City in 28 and then a likely blank in 29, so I'm not so sure that's the transfer to make, to be honest. It's UCL Matchday, expected UCL live deadline. Well, it's not a deadline stream though. There's no deadline. I only do deadline streams for UCL Fantasy, and I have answered some questions already about the Champions League. But yeah, I've never done a reaction stream or a substitution window stream for that fantasy format. Yo, Dylan, just about UCL, his first and second leg is like double game week. Yeah, so it isn't. So the second game week or the second leg of UCL Fantasy is going to be match day 8. That's a separate one entirely from match day 7. And what's happening today and tomorrow is still part of match day 7. It's not a double game week. There are no blanks or doubles in UCL Fantasy whatsoever. Who should I captain, Bastoni or Summer? Difficult one, but I'd probably go for Bastoni because he can actually score a goal. With Summer, the chance of that happening are 0.001%. And with Bastoni, he can get ball recovery points as well. So I'd go for Bastoni. Dylan, who to captain in UCL tonight? I would go for Kalinoglu there, Punjabi. Would you sub out Kane? Well, it depends who you're subbing on, but he's only got 2 points. I wouldn't really be that against it, to be honest. If you're subbing off Kane for Maatsen or Kalinoglu, so be it. At least you get a chance of outscoring 2 points quite easily. 404th Trooper says, I'm interested in bringing in Hwang, but it would lead me to taking a -4 hit in 29. I'm taking a -4 this week. I'm not completely against that, though. If you think Hwang outscores Douglas Luiz this week, and if you're planning to start Hwang in Game Week 28, for example, against Fulham at home, then I'd just rather bring in Hwang Hee-chan and focus on the game weeks right in front of you. It's a difficult balance to strike, because if Hwang doesn't deliver in 26, you could then just think, I should have got Douglas Luiz in the first place. So it's not that black or white, and sometimes it comes down to a bit of luck going your way. But my personal preference right now is to go for Hwang. Thank you, Tiggy Taylor. Thank you very much for the kind words. Best FPL content. Keep it up, Dylan. I love the membership content. Great value. Thank you, Tiggy, as always. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you the best for today. Even though you don't have Haaland and you're probably hoping for him to blank, I do hope you do really well. And not just for Game Week 26, but also for the rest of the season. And of course, 25 is still going on. Joseph says, hi, Dylan. I'm selling Palmer. Who is the best midfielder to buy from now until 30? I wish Wolves played in 29. They still could, but it requires 2 results in the FA Cup. Bournemouth to lose to Leicester and Wolves to lose to Brighton. And it's possible, but quite unlikely, I'd say, for both matches and results to go the way you want. I do like Hwang, but I'd also say Douglas Luiz and Bailey are good options to cover both blank game weeks. And the fixtures just before that are quite decent against Luton Town away and Tottenham at home. So Bowen is still up there for me. I know West Ham have been awful, but I think the best midfielder to buy from now until 30, I'm still going to go for Hwang or Douglas Luiz. Thank you, Callan. Probably I will do a -4 to bring Hwang Hee-chan and Højlund and play with 10 players in 26. I think that's the way to go. And also, if you're bringing in the defender for a -8 or above, even if they keep a clean sheet, you're requiring bonus points or attacking potential for them to really justify that hit. So if you are to take a hit, and I think that's absolutely fine, Hwang Hee-chan and Højlund are good picks. Hussein says, I need to buy Solanke, but I can't. I need to sell KDB. No, my advice is keep KDB. Don't go for Solanke until Game Week 27. I actually sold Solanke last week and it's backfired, but buying Solanke against Man City, I'd wait another week if possible. I'm bringing in Saka and Hwang, possibly Gabriel or Nuri, says Kuka. Yeah, absolutely fine. As for Gabriel Nuri, I'd rather go for Gabriel still. This week, yes, Wolves are more likely to keep a clean sheet, but in the following weeks afterwards, Arsenal have a much better chance of clean sheets, and Gabriel is just one of the best in terms of scoring goals from a defender. Jota out for who, says Badder. I have Lascelles 2, -4, which defender, or play just 10. I got a risky Walker and Estupinian to start next week. The only defenders I'd be willing to take a hit for this week are those that feature in 26 and 29. So you're looking at Region, Pau Torres, but I don't think it's worth it, to be honest. Maybe as a one-week punt, you could go for a Wolves defender, but even then, I just don't think it's worth it. And Sheffield United actually beat Wolves in the reverse fixture earlier this season. I think Wolves will win this time, but a clean sheet isn't guaranteed. So, yeah, Jota out for who? Hwang or Douglas Luiz would be my top picks. Then I'd be looking at Pedro Neto and Bailey. Hussein says, should I sell KDB now? No. I'd keep KDB. He was benched today. I think he starts against Bournemouth, and I think Solanke blanks against Man City next week. Ala Madrid says, as you suggested, I'll do transfer in Salah in 27 for KDB. Then my team midfield would be Salah, Gordon, Palmer, Saka, Son. I mean, that's a really good midfield for Gameweek 27 and 28, but if you don't have the free hit or you want to navigate 29 without it, every single midfielder you have except Son is going to blank in 29 unless some crazy results happen in the FA Cup. So just be careful about that, and it could be a problem for you later down the line. But that midfield 5 definitely looks amazing for 27 and 28. I'm not going to deny that, and you're in good hands. And even after 29, it's a very solid midfield until the end of the season. Parim says, is it worth to get Neto and Hwang together for a -4 hit? Yes, especially if you're selling 2 players who blank in 26 or that are injured. So Jota could be one of them. I do think it's worth a -4 hit. I'm personally going to go for one of them as part of a free transfer and potentially bring in Ivan Toney up front. But my answer is yes. What is your prediction for the Atletico Madrid game tonight? I've gone for 1-0 Inter, but maybe I'm a bit biased, or I'm looking at it from a defensive kind of lens, because Inter and Atletico are perceived as defensive teams, but that's not necessarily the case. Atletico Madrid do score a lot of goals. They're not keeping as many clean sheets as they used to during the prime Simeone days, and they actually play some very good football. So I might change that, go for a 2-1 Inter Milan, but I'm going to go for a win for the Italian side. Harry Dawson says, captain this game week for me, can't choose Haaland, Watkins, Hwang or Saka. Really close one. Newcastle looks like a tough game on paper, but the way they're defending and also the way Arsenal are playing right now, I think Saka's a great contender for the captaincy. I think at the moment, if I were to go a bit different, I'd go for Watkins at home to Forest. I think he's a really good option. And Haaland against Bournemouth. And look, if Haaland blanks today, I mean, is that even a way of approaching the captaincy? Or he blanks today, he's surely due in Game Week 26? Not necessarily, but yeah, you can't ignore Haaland. But right now, my answer would be Ollie Watkins. Thank you, Majabi. Much appreciated. As he says, let's get the stream to over 100 likes. It's a bit of a calmer stream than usual. But yeah, we've covered UCL Fantasy and FPL today. Thank you to those that send in super chats and all the champions and patrons. You're all massively appreciated. And thank you, Punjabi, for the shout out. Joseph says, is Saka essential to own? Up until Game Week 28, yes, he is essential to own, but he's likely to blank in 29. Then he faces Man City in Game Week 30. But I think from now until the end of the season, I think Saka is definitely worth holding on to for the long term. Vinif says, just an idea, is it worth selling Haaland for the rest of the season for stellar midfielders like Saka, Salah, KDB, Son or Maddison? You can do really well without Haaland. There are plenty of examples this season of that being the case, but I wouldn't sell Haaland right now. And even though Salah faces Forest in Game Week 27, I think the way it should be is probably sell Haaland in Game Week 28 or 29. And yeah, after that, you could look to maybe go without him for the rest of the season. But it's still risky, and there will be certain weeks where it's going to be, well, it's going to go against you. You're going to get maybe the odd red arrow, but ultimately, I'm not against that strategy because going for that midfield is just massive. Maddison, I'm not that keen on because he's injury prone, and I think Son is enough cover for the Spurs midfield. But the rest, I'm not going to lie, looks great. De Bruyne, he's another one, a bit injury prone, and he does get rotated quite a lot. But Saka, Salah, and Son, I think that midfield sets you for the rest of the campaign. Thank you, Madrid. So thanks, mate. I'll use the free hit in Game Week 29. It might be the way to go for your team. Hopefully it does pay off. I'm looking at Blank Gameweek 29 for me personally, and if I can get to 8 players or more, I'd be quite happy with it. Just remember, Madrid, it's not just about quantity, but also quality of players. So if you can get to Tony, Son, maybe another Spurs midfielder, and other key assets, you could argue Doughty could be one of them, and you don't even need to take many hits, you could maybe save the free hit for Gameweek 34, 37. But yeah, it's just all team dependent, and ultimately it could be the right thing for your squad. HD says, hopefully Haaland scores 4 goals tonight. From an FPL perspective, it will be great for me. But yeah, my prediction is 2 goals. I predict Inter 2-0 and PSV 2-0, says Badder. Fair enough. I've gone for 1-1 between PSV and Dortmund, and I've gone for 1-0 Inter Milan. But I might change these predictions, actually, and yeah, make some modifications to all of those predictions there. Hopefully Inter keep a clean sheet, because I just went Bastoni captain. Good luck. I've actually got someone on my bench, and with Lunin kind of just massively delivering for me last week, there's no need to make that change. Your channel is the best FPL channel on YouTube. Love the way you interact and answer every question. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Ala Madrid. Massively appreciate. Of course, there's a lot of content out there, but I also do UCL fantasy stuff, and it's always a blast to do all of that. Harry Dawson says, Don, Darwin and Jota out for Hwang and Solanke -4. Have 11 playing. Will probably free hit in 29 and wildcard 35 for the last 4 game weeks and last double. Use bench boost already. Well, at least you got that out of the way. I kind of hate having the bench boost for so long, and I might even use it in Game Week 37, which is not ideal. But I love those transfers, by the way. Solanke's not great for this week, but for Game Week 27 and 28, the hit certainly pays off. And yeah, he probably blanks in 29, but from Game Week 30 to 32, still some more good fixtures for Bournemouth. And yeah, I love the Hwang transfer for this week specifically. I'm actually looking at something similar, but instead of Solanke, I'm going to buy Tony. And when I do look to buy Solanke back, it would be in Game Week 28 for Erling Haaland. Would you buy Saka instead of KDB for a -4? So it just depends. So if you're looking to buy a midfielder, I'd definitely buy Saka over KDB. But would I sell De Bruyne to Saka for a hit this week? No, I wouldn't. Dylan, is Jota going to go down in price tonight? No, we covered this earlier. I think the only projected change tonight is Dallo going up in price. Jota could go down. Sometimes the algorithm works in a strange way. He's definitely going to go down in price eventually, but I don't think he will today. If Bastoni doesn't do well, I got Saka for tomorrow, though. Yeah, I've got Maatsen captain, which is an ideal. If I'd stuck on my original team, it would have been Kalinoglu as my captain tonight, but it would have meant no De Bruyne. So it's just kind of weird how these 50-50 calls can work out. And yeah, I'm just a bit gutted that I went for the wrong call between Mbappe and Vinicius, because it also would have meant the captaincy was sorted for me for the rest of the week. But that's the way it goes. Be sure to enjoy the games tonight for the Champions League and the Premier League. Let's get this stream to over 100 likes as well. We've been streaming for over an hour, well, almost an hour already. So time does fly when you're having fun. And yeah, just massively appreciate those that have tuned in. Do you think Bradley starts tomorrow? My original prediction was for Bradley to start one game and then be benched for the other and start in the Carabao Cup final against Chelsea at the weekend. And I'm going to stick with that prediction, so I'm going to say no. Foden and Haaland brace tonight. I'd love it. I really would. Maybe even Haaland assist as well on top of it. But yeah, that'd be the ideal scenario from today's games. And hopefully Brentford score, but not through Ivan Toney. But that's asking for so much, isn't it? So yeah, let's wait and see how it pans out. But Foden Haaland brace would be exceptional for those with him, and for those without, of course, different story. And there's so much variance in double game weeks and a lot of bad luck. HD says, hopefully, Harry. I mean, that's the hope, isn't it? We're hoping for the luck to go our way. But I'm looking at myself, for example, and I made some bad decisions, and I've been quite fortunate compared to others with so many injuries to the likes of Adebayo. So you got to, be grateful for what you have, and let's see how it all goes. But thank you to those that have tuned in today. Just a quick stream. I was supposed to probably do it on Sunday, but I was busy. And yeah, I thought today was a decent time to do it with all the Champions League and Premier League games happening tonight, and also the Man City lineups, which is infamously a disaster and a nightmare for all of us with Man City assets. But be sure to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Also, check out the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and also my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, to keep updated for everything FPL and UCL Fantasy related. You can also talk to me on those platforms in the comments section of my videos, and also in the Discord server, which has hundreds of members already. If there are any more questions, I'll probably go through that very soon. So yeah, one more From Punjabi, Dylan, do you think Brentford will play a low block tonight? Lost 10 games out of 13. Yeah, I definitely think they will and try to hit Man City on the counter-attack. They did the double over them last season. They also took the lead just a few weeks ago. But I think Man City will have too much quality. And as you say, Brentford have a terrible record. But that isn't enough to deter me from buying Ivan Toney. He remains a great option. And I do think the record will improve over time, especially between their prime fixture run between Game Week 32 and the rest of the season. But yeah, I think with Brentford assets, Tony's the only one I'm really interested in. Reguilón's decent for covering the blanks. And I think for tonight, they play a low block, but they'll still get beat quite comfortably, probably by 2 or 3. My prediction's probably going to be a 3-1 win for Manchester City. Hey Dylan, should I captain DeMarco or Calhanoglu? I would go for Calhanoglu. He's on penalties for Inter Milan. He gets a lot of ball recoveries, and DeMarco can be sobbed off quite early. Back you got, of course, if you are looking at Inter Milan clean sheet today, then maybe DeMarco's a decent punt. But for me, I would rather go for Calhanoglu. Dawson Havertz for third Arsenal pick. He's been playing well recently, and I think a lot of the things he does is being an enabler and facilitator for others. The movements he makes opens up spaces for others, and he's been involved in a lot of the goals with the pre-assists. Sometimes he, for example, the Trossard penalty, which Saka converted, that came from Havertz's pass. I wouldn't go from an FPL or UCL fantasy, though, to be quite honest with you. If you want 3 Arsenal players, I think the best 3 are Gabriel Saliba and Saka. Thank you for those that tune in today. If you've got any more questions, let me know down in the comment section below. Drop a like on your way out, and I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL fantasy content.